Joe Biden's cognitive decline has turned the 2024 presidential race upside down.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with,
Many of the president's own supporters are now desperate to see him throw in the towel, while his opponents can only pray he keeps going. If the Democrats don't want the election to go the same way the recent Biden-Trump debate did, they're going to need a replacement, and fast. The clock is ticking, and Joe's fans and foes alike are asking questions like, when Kamala, will Gavin, and why won't Michelle? And any change to the Democratic ticket this November will have profound implications for the crypto market. That's why today we're bringing you the lowdown on the Democrats most likely to replace Biden and what their candidacies could mean for crypto. Stay tuned. President Biden's car crash of a debate with Donald Trump in late June exposed more people than ever before to the reality of his cognitive decline. And frankly, whichever wily Biden aide greenlighted that debate in the first place has to be the smoothest would-be assassin of a sitting president in US history. Well, whether that decision was dastardly or just delusional, the damage has been done. Despite Biden's slurred protestations, his campaign's days are probably numbered. And it doesn't help that Biden's opponent just survived an assassination attempt and came out of it looking more powerful than ever. Trump's supporters are now doubly determined to put their man back in the White House, while the Democrats are in a shambles over who their own nominee should be. And for those of us in crypto, Biden's exit can't really come soon enough. Because wherever your political loyalties lie, his administration has been nothing but trouble for the crypto industry. If you haven't been following, you should check out our last video on the 2024 presidential elections for the full background on exactly why it is we say this. After all, it was Biden who appointed the pro-CBDC Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary and crypto arch-nemesis Gary Gensler as SEC Chair. But unfortunately, they are only the most visible faces of a government-wide crackdown on crypto. Because while the SEC periodically cries, "Look, it's a security," and diverts our attention, anti-crypto forces in the White House, influential members of Congress, the Federal Reserve, the FDIC, OCC, and DOJ have conspired to shut crypto out of the US banking system entirely. And when it comes to regulation, the federal government has kicked the can down the road for 4 long years. While other countries and territories have been laying down rules and regulations for the crypto industry, the Biden administration hasn't bothered. And this is likely no mistake. That's because crypto's biggest opponents in Washington believe that passing regulations would only further legitimize an industry that they're hoping will just go away. This has stranded industry leaders from Coinbase to Consensus in a legal minefield where any day they could wake up to a new enforcement action. But recently, cracks have started appearing in the Democratic Party line. Earlier this year, 21 Democrats in the House of Representatives and a dozen in the Senate voted against the White House to repeal a controversial SEC accounting policy. The policy is known as SAB 121 and effectively makes it harder for banks to hold crypto assets. Now, the vote to kill this policy was particularly interesting because President Biden announced in advance that he would veto the motion if it passed. Now, senators in favour of repealing SAB 121 didn't have enough votes to override a presidential veto. And this means that their vote was purely symbolic and had no real effect. In this context, Democrats, notably including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, were more free than usual to vote in the crypto industry's favour and against their own president. Now, this might look like a small crack in the party line, but you can bet your bottom Satoshi that it's going to spread fast. That's because the Democrats are staring down the barrel of a presidential election and seeing some hard truths at the end of it. They can no longer ignore the fact that being anti-crypto appeals to nobody in particular and alienates millions of American voters who care about financial freedom. But whoever makes it onto the Democratic ticket this November, if they do start singing a crypto-friendly tune, it'll be thanks to one person, Donald J. Trump. That's because after years of flip-flopping between bashing Bitcoin and flogging NFTs, Trump has taken another look at the crypto vote and spotted an open goal. And now he's claiming that he will be, quote, the crypto president. And get this, in July, the Republicans published a draft party platform declaring that they will, quote, end Democrats' unlawful and un-American crypto crackdown and oppose the creation of a central bank digital currency. The cat is well and truly out of the bag now, and if Democrats have any sense, they'll be scrambling to put together a softer message on crypto in response. The content of that message will depend on who becomes the nominee at the Democratic National Convention in August. So, let's investigate just who that might be. Hold up a second there, Guy. Sorry to interrupt, folks, but I just wanted to very quickly tell you about the Coin Bureau deals page. Now, this is the place where we have put together some of the very best deals and promos in all of crypto. So you can think things like exchange sign-up bonuses, trading fee discounts, and money off of hardware wallets, and much, much more besides. So if you want to check that out, coinbureau.com/deals is the place to go, or you can just use the link in the description of this video down below. Thanks very much, and now back to you, Guy. Now, if Democrat Party leaders have decided on a replacement for Biden, then they're keeping quiet about it. At the moment, all we have is a big question mark and monetized speculation in the form of prediction markets. Now, if you're not familiar, prediction markets are quite self-explanatory. They're just a mechanism for betting on the outcomes of future events. Simple as they may be, though, they provide a much richer source of data than, say, opinion polls. Poll data can be useful, but they only provide us with a snapshot of attitudes from some point in the past. And depending on who conducted and participated in the poll and how, it's not uncommon for different polls to contradict each other on the same issue. Prediction markets, on the other hand, are more akin to a 24/7 live stream of public opinion. They aggregate all available sources of information, including all of the available news and polling data, plus market participants' interpretations thereof. The result, in theory, is a canonical source of truth that you can watch unfolding in real time. Microsoft research economist David Rothschild has argued along the same lines that prediction markets are superior to polls. Quote, I can create a poll that can mimic everything about a prediction market, except markets have a way of incentivizing you to come back at 2 a.m. and update your answer. This is very much the case when it comes to Polymarket, which for our money is the richest source of opinion data on the question of a Biden replacement. At the time of making this video, Polymarket users have wagered over $100 million on who will be on the Democrat Party ticket come this November. Now, we should point out that Polymarket bets are made in USDC, and so its user base is likely almost entirely pro-crypto. However, their only motivation for betting one way or another is to make money from whoever is most likely to win. The profit motive has no political loyalty, right? Now, you can see from the graph here that for most of this year, Polymarket participants overwhelmingly bet that Biden would be the Democrat nominee. Right up until the debate showdown between Biden and Trump, Polymarket showed Biden's chances of being the Democrats' nominee steadily increasing to a peak of 91%. And then the debate happened. Biden's performance caused his odds on Polymarket to fall off a cliff. After bottoming around 35%, they've recovered to around 54%, but remain volatile amid the mounting pressure for Biden to walk away and his public refusal to do so. Now, if Biden does step down, Polymarket has Kamala Harris as the favourite with 32% odds. This makes sense because if Biden isn't mentally fit to run for a second term, well, it stands to reason that he isn't fit to serve the rest of this current term either. So, if Biden is to exit sooner rather than later, then the public will get to know President Kamala Harris before the election takes place. If this happens, it's hard to imagine that Harris wouldn't also take the nomination at the Democratic National Convention in August. At the moment, no other challenger is within touching distance of Harris. The closest candidate is Michelle Obama, who currently has a 6% chance of becoming the nominee, according to Polymarket. Gavin Newsom and Hillary Clinton are trailing Obama with 3% and 1% odds respectively. Behind them, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dean Phillips and Elizabeth Warren complete the list, each with a chance of less than 1%. Interestingly, this prediction market also has a category labelled Other, including Whitmer, currently at 6%. This means that the collective chances of anyone listed here, including Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, are about the same as Michelle Obama's. How to interpret this is anyone's guess. For example, is Whitmer on 5% and the rest of the eligible population collectively on 1%? Or maybe it's the other way around. Who knows? Anyway, the numbers on Polymarket are in a state of flux and could swing wildly as the Biden campaign trundles along and his would-be replacements are put under the media microscope. Just look at Michelle Obama. She has explicitly ruled out running for president, and yet the market has her as the strongest contender behind Vice President Harris. With a name like hers, if Michelle Obama so much as sneezes in the direction of the White House between now and the Democratic National Convention, it would likely send shockwaves through the prediction markets. Anything could happen between now and then. So, whether Biden can cling on or if he's replaced by another Democrat challenger, we'd better be prepared for every possible outcome. And on that note, it's time we took a fine-tooth comb through each potential candidate's record on crypto and ask what their shot at the presidency would mean for us. We'll start from the bottom and work our way up and leave out candidates who the market thinks have a sub 1% chance of making it. For reference, this means Elizabeth Warren and RFK Jr., whose records on crypto are well known, and Dean Phillips, an ostensibly pro-crypto member of Congress who dropped out of the race back in March. That means our first challenger is Hillary Clinton. Polymarket currently gives the former Secretary of State, who lost the presidential race to Trump back in 2016, a 1% chance of becoming the Democratic nominee. Now, Clinton last publicly voiced her opinion of crypto in 2021 at a panel discussion in Singapore. It started off as a nice enough comment, with her describing crypto as, quote, very interesting and somewhat exotic, but quickly went downhill from there. She went on to warn that crypto has the potential, quote, for destabilizing nations, perhaps starting with small ones, but going much larger. And as such, governments should, quote, pay greater attention. Now, this comment suggests that Clinton has learned little about crypto since 2016. Back then, her campaign announced that Hillary wanted the government to adopt blockchain for public service applications. However, internal communications from the Clinton campaign, leaked by WikiLeaks, revealed a less enthusiastic stance on crypto per se. Clinton's campaign had briefly mooted the idea of accepting donations in Bitcoin, before dismissing the idea as, quote, too libertarian. Well, whatever its political valence may be, anyone who turned their nose up at accepting free Bitcoin back in 2016 has got to be kicking themselves now. And when it comes to her advocacy for blockchain back then, it sounds to us like Clinton was just dropping buzzwords for the sake of it. Based on this record, the kindest thing we can say is that she probably doesn't understand crypto very well, and therefore might be willing to change her tune if she thinks it would benefit her politically. Moving on, our next contender is California Governor Gavin Newsom, who the market thinks has a 3% chance of stealing the nomination. Among Democrats, the case for Newsom is a fascinating will he, won't he. Newsom talks like a die-hard Biden ally and walks like a hungry Biden replacement. Gavin Newsom is the co-chair of President Biden's re-election campaign committee and recently vowed to, quote, never turn his back on Biden. That sounds very honourable, but it's kind of redundant considering that the future of Biden's candidacy is a matter of health rather than party loyalty. All it would take is one diagnosis from a White House doctor, and Newsom could supplant Biden without any hint of betrayal. Now, clearly, the markets don't like Newsom's chances, but it's worth noting the media storm that has surrounded the California governor since last year. In fact, he's been accused of running a, quote, shadow election campaign to raise his own profile nationally and internationally. And this activity peaked when he met with Xi Jinping and Benjamin Netanyahu last year. Suffice to say, it's highly unusual for state governors to meet with foreign heads of state. After Newsom's second encounter with Xi, President Biden himself remarked, quote, "He's been one hell of a governor, man. Matter of fact, he could be anything he wants. He could have the job I'm looking for." Quite. Well, if Newsom continues to court media attention, then we should probably keep an eye on him and what he has to say about crypto. As it happens, he's considered one of the Democrats' most progressive voices, although he tends to discuss blockchain and crypto as somewhat separate topics. During his term as California's governor, Newsom has passed legislation implementing the kind of public service blockchain application that Hillary Clinton once vaguely invoked. The law in question was signed by Newsom in September 2022 and enables Californians to receive state records like birth, marriage, and death certificates via blockchain. And speaking of 2022, it was a tough year in which to be a crypto advocate. Earlier in the year, Newsom had signed an executive order that sought to promote blockchain research, spur innovation, and explore how the technology might be used in government. This already sounds more progressive than anything we've seen from the Biden administration. However, Newsom would later claim in an interview that this executive order hadn't gone, quote, as far as a lot of people wanted in the industry. And, unfortunately, the executive order came just days before the Terra Luna collapse happened and weeks before the Celsius bankruptcy. Sentiment around crypto became very frosty very quickly. And soon, a new bill to regulate the crypto industry with a state-level licensing system was passed through both chambers of California's legislature. Newsom ended up vetoing this bill on the grounds that it would be, quote, premature to lock a licensing structure in statute, without taking into account both the research conducted under his own executive order and, quote, forthcoming federal actions. But if Newsom was expecting the Biden administration to show some leadership on regulating crypto, he was in for a disappointment. And worse still, not long after Newsom's veto, FTX imploded. And suddenly, vetoing crypto regulation was not such a good look. That was pretty bad luck. But on the whole, Newsom's appreciation for blockchain and efforts to engage with the crypto industry do seem to be in earnest. His record makes it hard to imagine that a President Newsom would allow Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren to continue being the loudest voices on crypto in the Democratic Party. And, for what it's worth, Newsom clearly understands crypto better than Hillary Clinton does. But at the moment, the markets are saying there is a 97% chance that he will not be the nominee this year. So let's not dwell on him too much. Moving on. So, next up on Polymarket is Michelle Obama, with a 6% chance of becoming the Democratic nominee this year. That's twice as likely as Gavin Newsom. Despite having explicitly ruled out running for president, Obama remains a fantasy candidate for many Democrats. And when you look at polling data, it's not hard to see why. Earlier this year, an Ipsos poll asked respondents how they would vote in a hypothetical election showdown between various Democrats and Donald Trump. The poll's results caused quite a stir because Michelle Obama came out head and shoulders above every other Democrat. The Biden versus Trump scenario was a dead heat, with 40% of respondents opting for each candidate. Kamala Harris versus Trump fared only marginally better, with 43% saying they would vote for Harris and 42% for Trump. And then there is Michelle Obama, with 50% versus Trump's 39%. Like I said earlier, if Obama so much as hints that she wants to throw her hat into the ring, the numbers on Polymarket could change very quickly. What such a scenario would mean for the crypto market requires some pretty creative interpretation. That's because Michelle Obama never went out of her way to comment on crypto one way or another. And, before you ask, President Barack Obama was also pretty tight-lipped. But in the absence of direct comments from Michelle, the best we can do is comb through her husband's record as president and assume that she will have a similar stance if she were to take the job he once had. So, the Obama years coincided with the very earliest days of crypto. When Barack Obama was first elected, the Bitcoin white paper was 4 days old, and when he completed his second term, the total combined market cap of all cryptocurrencies was $7 billion. That's less than the current market cap of DOT. As such, it's not all that surprising that Obama never publicly mentioned crypto while in office. However, in 2015, he did sign an executive order that declared the, quote, increasing prevalence and severity of malicious cyber-enabled activities to be a national emergency and empowered the government to confiscate digital assets without, quote, prior notice of a listing or determination. This was a nightmare for fans of civil liberties and due process and doesn't seem very crypto-friendly, to say the least. Then, in 2016, President Obama expressed concern about the implications of encryption becoming strong to the point of impenetrability. Although he didn't mention crypto or blockchain per se, he might as well have been doing paid PR for hardware wallet companies. That's because Obama warned of the potential for an impenetrable device akin to a, quote, Swiss bank account in your pocket to thwart the ability of law enforcement to apprehend criminals or enforce taxation. To us, this sounds like another case of a politician with a poor understanding of the public ledger system on which cryptocurrencies exist. Now, this is a little alarming because when Obama made this statement, he had already declared a national emergency of, quote, malicious cyber-enabled activities that called for government powers to seize digital assets without warning. Anyway, this is Barack Obama we're talking about, and you never know, maybe Michelle is a closet degen, flipping meme coins in the trenches like the rest of us. But frankly, when it comes to crypto, she is a known unknown. Based on our very limited information, we'll tentatively say she's probably not the ideologue that Elizabeth Warren is, and probably not the advocate that Gavin Newsom appears to be. At any rate, the markets highly doubt she even wants to run for president. So, let's keep it moving. Next up on Polymarket's prediction market is the slightly odd construction of others, including Gretchen Whitmer. The market says there is a 6% chance of someone in this category replacing Biden. But as we said, there's no way of knowing how much of this 6% chance belongs to Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and how much to the rest of the eligible population of the United States. So, let's take a pinch of salt as we look through Whitmer's record. Like Newsom, she is a state governor and a co-chair of President Biden's re-election campaign committee who continues to voice support for Biden publicly. Recently, though, she's been sending some rather mixed messages. Specifically, she tweeted her support for Joe Biden's re-election and in the same post dropped a donation link to her own political action committee, rather than Biden's re-election campaign. Smooth. Anyway, like Michelle Obama, we don't have much to work with when it comes to Whitmer's stance on crypto. Back in 2019, she signed into state law a series of crypto-specific updates to Michigan's penal code. However, this merely clarified that criminal activity involving crypto would be treated the same way as criminal activity involving cash. It doesn't tell us much, in other words. Then, in 2020, Whitmer was mailed an anonymous letter by someone threatening to murder Michigan state employees unless she paid a ransom of $2 million in Bitcoin. State authorities determined that the threat was not credible, and nothing came of it. In 2022, Michigan's Senate passed its own Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Commission Act, establishing a commission to look into everything from the use of blockchains for state marijuana registries to the use of Bitcoin as legal tender in Michigan. Whitmer was tasked with handpicking several members of this commission from the crypto industry. Unfortunately, aside from the Michigan Senate bill itself, there's almost no information available online about the composition or work of this commission, or whether it was even formed at all. So, once again, we're grasping at straws. Gretchen Whitmer looks to us like another relatively blank canvas. If she has any strong views on Bitcoin, blockchain, CBDCs, or just about anything else relevant to crypto, She's done a good job of keeping them a secret. And this brings us to our main character, Vice President Kamala Harris. Or, as President Biden called her in a recent press conference, Vice President Trump. At the time of making this video, Polymarket shows a 32% chance of her taking the Democratic nomination this year, versus Joe Biden's 54%. Deja vu warning. Harris's record on crypto is basically non-existent, so we're going to have to do some reaching here. Well, we can start with her catchphrase, quote, "What can be unburdened by what has been."
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Who we can be, unburdened by who we have been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
A statement so inoffensive and devoid of meaning that you could apply it to just about anything, including crypto, and walk away feeling vaguely positive about a Harris presidency. But if we're going to find anything of substance, we'll have to look a lot harder. Let's see. Well, back in 2020, Decrypt published an article about Harris's VP campaign team hiring the crypto-friendly Ryan Montoya, previously CTO for a California NBA team. During Montoya's 6-year stint with the Sacramento Kings, the team became the first in NBA history to accept Bitcoin payments. They also started mining crypto in 2018, auctioned off players' jerseys on Ethereum, and launched their own altcoin. However, as Harris's head of advance and scheduling, Montoya's role on Harris's team ostensibly had nothing to do with crypto. We suspect it wasn't his blockchain acumen that landed him the job on Harris's team so much as his long history of service to the Democrats. Montoya worked on both of President Obama's election campaigns. In 2004, he worked for John Kerry, and before that, he served in the Department of Energy during the Clinton administration. And unfortunately, after joining Harris's team in 2020, he gained notoriety not for shilling crypto to the vice president, but for allegedly fostering a culture of workplace bullying and abuse. Okay, so maybe he's not our guy. Moving on. Now, as far as we can tell, the best indication of how a President Harris might treat crypto can probably be found in her deep ties to Silicon Valley. In the 2010s, Harris courted the support of big tech and rode it all the way to victory in California state elections to become Attorney General and then Senator. Contributors to Harris's campaigns have included the likes of Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, Apple's former design guru Johnny Ive, and Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff, among others. She owes her career to Silicon Valley and has not been known to bite the hand that feeds. A few years back, the New York Times published an article that shone a light on Harris's laissez-faire approach to big tech. Here's an excerpt. Quote, "Ms. Harris rarely challenged the major tech companies after she became California's Attorney General. Jamie Court, president of the California-based consumer watchdog, said his group lobbied Ms. Harris in 2011 to support legislation that would force companies to stop monitoring the online activity of users if they clearly stated that they did not want to be tracked. She refused to sponsor the bill or support it," he said. 2 years later, Ms. Harris sponsored, and California enacted, a less stringent law requiring companies to post in privacy policies whether they abide by do not track requests and what personally identifiable information they collect. She presided over this era of great consolidation and power in the hands of these tech giants, and she didn't do a thing, Mr. Court said. End quote. Now, what this means for crypto is open to interpretation. On the one hand, privacy is kind of a big deal for crypto advocates, and the tech titans of Web 2 are not exactly our best friends in this and many other regards. So, it's safe to say that Harris is not ideologically aligned with crypto per se. But, on the other hand, crypto is a subsection of the tech industry. So, we might hope that some of that Silicon Valley goodwill will rub off on crypto too. And if one thing's for sure, it's that Harris is loyal to her donors. If only we had an American crypto billionaire who could throw money at politicians like Kamala Harris so that they would do our bidding. Do you think she can accept a donation from a convicted felon? You know what? Never mind. Look, crypto and Silicon Valley aren't exactly the same constituency. But If Harris does end up running for president, then a donation here and there from the US crypto industry probably wouldn't hurt. She seems pretty pliable, and if wealthy donors can influence her appointments at the SEC, Federal Reserve, Treasury, CFTC, and so on, then at the very least, we could probably look forward to a less hostile administration should she get the Democrat nomination and win the election. Perhaps this is just wishful thinking, though. Or, of course, a President Harris might continue the Biden administration's war on crypto in even more dastardly and harebrained ways than we've seen so far. This is all just speculation, though, not voting advice, okay? But if recent history is anything to go by, Democrats are willing to change their tune on crypto the moment that Trump starts to court the degen vote. So then, who will it be? Well, at the time of making this video, there's just over a month left until the Democratic National Convention, and Biden is refusing to budge. Love him or loathe him, Biden is not going to become any more lucid anytime soon, and the notion that he will be mentally fit to run the United States until 2028 just seems kind of cruel. As far as crypto is concerned, our best hope for a Biden replacement is probably Gavin Newsom, purely because he seems to be paying attention and receptive to the crypto industry. Whether or not he would be a real advocate is another question entirely. And at any rate, the markets are giving him pretty slim chances. If, or perhaps when, Biden does bow out, it is of course the vice president who will take over. But if those prediction markets are to be believed, Harris's chances of beating Trump are slimmer than even those of a former First Lady who's been out of office for 8 years and apparently wants nothing to do with this election anyway. But if it's a choice between the current president and vice president, we should probably hope it's the latter, because Biden has proven that he is no friend to crypto, and Harris, well, at least we can say that she has yet to show her hand. As she always likes to say, what can be unburdened by what has been. Okay, we could keep speculating and watching the numbers on Polymarket swinging up and down, but that's quite enough for one video. If you think we missed anything, then be sure to let us know about it in the comments. And if you're hoping for a pro-crypto president as much as we are, then go ahead and smash that like, subscribe, and notification bell. It'll help spread the word and keep you first in line for the next installment of our election coverage. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. This is Guy, over and out.